Hello, 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 hello. Good evening. We're learning Likutey Moharan, the second Chelek, Torah Daled. We are holding, like in the middle of paragraph Yud Aleph 11. So Rabbeinu explained that the fight, the struggle between Derech HaTeva and the Emunas HaRotzon, that everything runs according to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it. That's the essence of the Milchama of David and Goliath. As we're talking, there are great demonstrations going of people demonstrating against the decree to take the Bnei Yeshivas to the army. This is exactly this Milchama. This is exactly that struggle between the tfisa, the ashkafa, that everything is al piteva, and this is what Goliath represents: big and strong and weapons and high tech and whatever. David HaMelech came with the rotzing. We learned before the hishtadlus has to be made, but people don't realize that even according to their shita, for everyone who's actually fighting in the front, there is a support mechanism of 4 or 5 people in intelligence, in logistics, in food, and whatever it is, all around. Like for every fighter, you have to have at least 4 or 5 support people. Okay, why are you not crying? Why are they not fighting? Why are they not in the front? Because the one in the front cannot fight unless they have the support mechanism. What's the difference between you have the intelligence or you have, according to their shita? What about Torah? That's without the Torah, nothing you do will be successful. But that's exactly where the fight is. Emunas HaRotzon, as opposed to the Chayos, the Chachmei HaTeva. This is what it is. And this is what we said. And Rabbeinu said that even once you beat down and you negate the das of Chachmei HaTeva, and you bring him down, still, if the revelation of the Ratzon is not totally forceful, totally complete, totally resolute, in other words, some kind of a suffix in the Ratzon, there's some kind of a doubt in the Ratzon, that the Ratzon is still not cleaned, it's not, people are not 100% convinced that everything behaves according to the Ratzon. So even though Chochmas HaTeva, is defeated, but because the Ratzon is not that strong, it can, Chas v'Sholom, through Metzach HaNochash. We said that's the distillation of that Klipa, of that Tumah. Chochmas HaTeva, that it will reawaken. The Chochmas HaTeva, even though it was defeated, it will reawaken. And for this, you need the Koyach of the Tzedakah. This is what the Tzedakah is very efficient at. You give tzedakah because tzedakah is always good. It's always against the metzach hanochash. Because metzach hanochash is that if you go to the supermarket and you pay with a $100 bill, that $100 bill is not coming back. If you give somebody $100 bill, or if somebody takes a $100 bill from you, that $100 bill never comes back. The emunah sarotzon is that if you give somebody $100 tzedakah, this gives you much more than it takes away from you. Emunah sarotzon is that when you give tzedakah, it's like you're taking a kernel of wheat and you put it in the ground. You put it in the ground, what happens to it? It rots. It rots. It's no good. You can't eat it anymore. Only when it rots completely that, the chaff opens and the new sprouts come out, and you have a strand of wheat that has 8 or 10, sometimes 14 grains. 1 grain is 14 grains. Putting it in the earth, planting it in the earth, is kivyochol hepech hasecha, is hepech hateva. That's why this to say that where it says that the Seder Zroim in the Mishnah, it's the first Seder Zroim is called Emunah, because when a farmer sows his field, what does he know? It's going to rain. It's not going to rain. It's going to come up. It will be good. It won't be good. It's so his eyes are up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't know what's going to be. So Emunah zeh Seder Zroim. זה הפך הטבע. That the idea is that because of emunas, the Chachmei HaTeva that they have, they bechlal don't believe that tzedakah does anything. They don't believe that Tumah Torah does anything. So you have a habit, whatever it is. You're quaint, you're old-fashioned, whatever, anachronistic, whatever the languages that they use. You have to do something real. Go out. Nonsense. As Rebbe Meir Shechter said, it's better to have 1 hour with success, 1 hour of work with success, than 10 hours without success. Duh. Right? So all this mimer that we learned is embedded in this particular mimer of the story of Rav Yehuda Hindua. And this is what it says in the Gemara of Yehuda Hindua Mishtay. It's a story that he told. Zimno Chado, one time, Havena Hava Azlina Besfinto. One time I traveled by ship. V'chazina Avna Tava, and we saw that precious stone was in the water. The Hadalatanino, there was some kind of a big fish, either a shark or a whale, whatever it is that was going around it. The Noches Bar Meroila Tuye, and a swimmer, professional swimmer, somebody who knows how to swim, went down to retrieve that gem, that stone. Asatarino, Mekabai Balosfinto, came that fish and wanted to swallow up the ship. Asa Tzipora Pushkansa, came a female crow, Pascal Reshi, and it bit off the head of that fish or whatever it was. And the water turned red like blood. It was so much, it was so big, that all the water became red. Came a fish, a buddy of the first one. Shokla, it took that gem, the talula, and it hung it on its dead comrade. And it rejuvenated, came up alive. Hadarati, so that fish that got its life as a present, now about Kabbalah's finta. Now I wanted to swallow up the fish one time again, the boat one time again. Hadarati tzipa, came that bird, Pascal Rashi, cut his head off. Shakla lahu avnatav, and the bird now took that precious stone, that gem, Shadalas finta, and it threw it into the boat. No, I'm sorry. The person who knows how to swim got to the gem and he threw it into the boat. And it says, Rabbi Yudon Hindur, Hava Tzipra Melichi Badan, there were salted birds by us, chicken. These are the provisions, the olden days. What did you take? They took, it took meat with them, and the meat was salted. It was, so it can survive the trip. So this is we had salted chicken, jerky. In other words, we had shechted and salted. We put this gem on top of them. Shaklu prochalu. Those birds took the gem. They became alive. They took the gem and they flew away with it. That's the story. So comes obviously the question, what's going on? Yes.
What's a salted bird?
Salted, it was preserved.
A cooked bird, not a
No. They were shechted. They were preserved. Apropos this, that everybody knows the story of the crusade, the Crusades. What kind of bloodshed they cause, but very few people know what happened, what brought it about. A little history, whatever. We're talking about the year 1000, or the Common Era. The Jews were living good life under the Goyim. They were having a good time.
The Rhineland.
The Rhineland, in whole Europe, whatever it is, the Jews were having relatively good time, whatever it is. A goy blapped a goy, but nevertheless, they were to the point that, like yeshiva bochrim playing baseball, right? In those days, they had games. It's called jousting. This is where knights in very heavy armor had these very long lances, and they would, ride these big war horses against one another. And the idea was to knock the other one off. That's a sport called jousting. The same way that in America you find Shiva Brochim in the country playing baseball, in those days the Shiva Brochim used to play jousting. to the point that La Halacha, they had a question: what happens if, somebody is hurt by during jousting? Is the other one chayiv? There's a responsa on that. During jousting, one of them got hurt, got injured. Is the other one chayiv or not? The poskim Shulchan Aruch. That was 500 years before Shulchan Aruch. Right? And the answer is no, it's not chayav because he was makabel on himself. When he went into that the competition, he was makabel himself. Listen, one of you is going to lose. It might be you. So they're makabel on themselves. At kedei kach they were. Yeah, that's part.
Risk is part of the game.
Right. You want to play, they play football, whatever it is. It's concussion, whatever it is. It comes to show you how, what a good, how neighborly the relationship were. Now you're talking about the time where the Pope, it's not like today. It used to be like one of the biggest kings in Europe. He had an army, and now the armies of those days, talking about like 2,000 people, was a serious army. That the city-states in Germany and France, whatever it is, they all had armies, and the Galach from Rome, he had a big army, whatever it is, it was part. And the thing is, if anybody ever took a visit to the Tower of London, whatever it is, with the jewels of the monarchy of England are stored, you would see a very surprising sight. A whole collection of very precious, studded with gems and diamonds, of psalmim boxes. Psalmim boxes, with this little turrets, with a flag on top, whatever it is, you open up. What do the kings of England have to do with psalmim boxes? They're not making enough dollar. The answer is the most precious commodity of Europe during the 1000 era was salt. Because during the summer, they harvested and they hunted. And what did they do? With the meat that they accumulated? They had to salt it because then came the winter and there's no food. So without salt, they could not exist. The biggest sellers of salt were the Muslims. Muslims from Egypt, that's Israel, that was the area where the salt came. I'm going to give you one guess. Who was the intermediary between the sellers and the buyers? Okay. Yeah, Chaim Shmuel and Zelig Zalman, they were the ones who was like a. Now, the Muslims always had a faction of moderates and a faction of fanatics. It's not a new invention from today. It always existed. For a long time, it was the moderates that were on top, and salt found its way to Europe. Money found its way to, the Muslims, whatever it is, and everything was fine. At around like 1050, 60, 70, around that era, the fanatics, the Muslim fanatics, the jihad, the Hamas, whatever it is, of that era took over, and then decided two things. First of all,
Spain that took over the Moorish Empire?
no, I think that was later. I don't know, could be, but I think it wasn't. But for what I know is that they decided two things. First of all, no infidels could get into Eretz Yisrael, because there would be Metama Eretz Yisrael. That was the first decree. The second decree, they tripled the price of salt. So Going to Israel, that's one thing. Salt was a whole different matter. Now, how does the how does you see the church has unbelievable riches. It's the richest entity on earth, probably. Easy. How did it amass its treasure? The answer is they have a very clear shita called entitlement. According to this shita is as follows. Human life at that particular time was worthless. It meant nothing. Zero. I mean, most people, there's a died in the 20s, 30s, whatever. If you were 35, used to be like an old man. It's like we're talking about Rashi time, okay? And so how does a guy get Olam Haba? Says he has to get a certain quotient of good deeds. He has to get 100 points. Okay, so let's say that the guy was very, very good and he got 120 points. All he did is 100 points to get to Olam Haba. What do you do with the extra 20 points? Those extra 20 points go to the church. That's a property of the church. Now, the church can sell those points. It's called entitlement. The Sistine Chapel, the entire Vatican, everything was built upon entitlement. So the Pope, that was one of the big, monarchs at that time, decided that you have
There
to
will
do
be a monetary value on their beautiful good deed. Like
it wasn't monetary. It wasn't monetary. The thing is that those chuyot, those entitlements, is the property of the church. Let's say a person had 70, okay, gave money to the church. So the church would say, okay, we're giving you whatever it is that you need to get to Olam Haba. No problem. You give us your money. First of all, you have to understand. Entitlements is called entitlements. You see, the thing is that the principle was that you have the money, we have the experience. Okay. Once you give us your money, we have the money, you'll have the experience of being made into a fool, of being played. Okay, so the Pope came up with a kol koira that said that he's making this crusade. Of course, it had nothing to do with salt, of course. I mean, the church with money, but have to save the Jerusalem. You have to save from the. So he decides he made a kol koira that says as follows. Okay, anybody who joins the crusade, okay, gets all the points, whatever it is that he needs to get to Olam Haba. That's point number one. Point number two, all his past transgressions are forgiven. It doesn't matter what he did. Killed, whatever. Everything is wiped clean. I mean, the Pope, man. If you don't believe him, you can ask him. He'll tell you. You can imagine who are the people who joined. These are the people, as far as they're concerned, they have nothing to lose. All the criminals, all the, whatever, they all joined up. He put up an army of 40,000 people. You're talking about a huge army, in those days. Now, they were supposed to, their mission, should they choose to accept it, was to kill all the enemies of the church. So one of these big armies was in Germany. And the guy that led it said, okay, listen, when we get to Eretz Yisrael, we'll kill all the infidels over there. We know whatever it is, the heretics over there. But in the meantime, we have them here. We have the Jews here.
Why wait?
But why wait until we get there? No, maybe you'll die along the way. In the meantime, chaparan, Shemiracha. That was when the crusade started, and the five Kehillas, Vermaizim, against, and all those, were wiped out, and that took place in 1095. In Kamanira, Rashi was so tzabrochen from this that he stopped writing. He didn't write anymore until he passed away 5 years later.
By witnessing the crusade?
Yeah, from what happened. So that tells you what salt meant. This is what salt was used. With a little tangent, a little history lesson on how things were. So we put the gem on, this gem on the salted birds, the salted meat, and the birds became alive again. And not only they became alive again, but they took the gem and they flew away with it. The Rebbe explains what's inherent in this story. One time I traveled on a ship. That boat, that Sfinta, Rebbe says also in Torah, Aleph Likutey Moharan, Sfinta, which was cherished and important, and he uses the same thing in Torah Dalad, in quite a few Torahs. Sfina is, we talk about the Shoresh HaRatzon. Shesham Kvuras Moshe. This is where Moshe Rabbeinu was buried. Shenistalek v'Shosh HaRatzon. Moshe Rabbeinu was mistalek at the very root of the Ratzon. Zeh Pchinas Sfinto. Moshe Rabbeinu was mistalek on Shabbos by Mincha, which is the time of Rava the Ravin, the Ratzon Shebaratzonis, that's the Shoresh HaRatzon, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Kodesh Baruch Hu, told him, go up to Har Nevo, and I'll show you Eretz Yisrael. There you will not come. And from the Ishtoker, Eretz Yisrael signifies the Shoresh HaRatzon. And from the Ishtokikus of Moshe Rabbeinu to come to Eretz Yisrael, to come to Shoresh HaRatzon, he was mistalik. Shabbos B'Mincha was mistalik into Shoresh HaRatzon. His neshama left him and was included into the Shoresh HaRatzon by the Ishtokikus. Beinu says the Kedushas Shabbos that a Yid gets when Shabbos comes in. It says Yom HaShvi, the Shovas Vayinofash. He rested. He arrested and he stopped and he rested. Vayinofash. So Chazal says, what is Vayinofash? He says in the frequent of Vay of the Nefesh. Wow, that the Nefesh was lost. On Shabbos we get the Shomei Sirah. Motzei Shabbos we lose it. And being that we lose it on Motzei Shabbos, on Erev Shabbos, as we get in Shomei Sirah, we already are filled with Kisufin. We're going to lose the Neshama Yisera, void of the Nefesh. Those Kisufin are making the Neshama Yisera come in. The secret of Avodas Hashem is longing for the moment. If a person had the sense to long for now, this moment, Rabbeinu says a person only has the hour in the place where he's standing at. Tomorrow, we don't know what happened tomorrow. The void of tomorrow is something else completely. The only thing you have is now. Okay, no, but certainly, no, I don't feel too well now. I'm not in the mood. God, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat something. Now, what happens? What happens is that you lose the now. And you think that nothing, you didn't lose anything because you have a different now, right? Right after this now, you have another now. So you think it's the same now, but it's not the same now. It's a different now. So how can you get to use the most use of the now? By longing for it. But how do you long for now? You're in a now. What's to long for? You long for the fact that it's going to pass. It's going to be a different now. If you don't use it now, it's going to pass. If you don't use now properly, you're going to lose now. You'll have different now. But the now, right now, you lost it. This longing for now, that's the thing that enables you to make the most out of now. Because you know you're going to lose it. You know it's going to pass. This is the status of Moshe Rabbeinu in Shorosh HaRotzin. The longing of Moshe Rabbeinu to Shorosh HaRotzin. Nobody knows where Moshe Rabbeinu is buried. So what it says about the burying place of Moshe Rabbeinu, Kisham Chelkas Mechoykek Tzofon. This is where the parcel of the lawgiver, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, is Sofon. This is where he's buried. So see, Sofon is shown Sfino. There's a Shorosh HaRotzin. Moshe Rabbeinu is Mistalik. There's a place to bury Moshe Rabbeinu that's completely hidden from any living creature. Nobody knows where he's buried. So the Sfina is an allegory to the kever of Moshe Rabbeinu. Kvuras Moshe, which is Metzach HaRotzin, is the forehead of the Rotzin, the Shorosh of the Rotzin. There is the stalkos of Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda is telling us the road he took in order to attain the Bechina of Shorosh HaRotzin. And he says, we saw that precious gem that a swim is a swim, a crocodile. I'm not sure what this tanin is. Usually he's a crocodile thing. I don't know. I know. The stone reminds me because Evan Shleimer Ritzoinoi. It says that Evan, the Kodesh Baruch Hu is Evan Shleimer Ritzoinoi. It is the when we talking about the Ratzon Kodesh Baruch Hu is called Evan Shleimer. You know, when a Kodesh Baruch Hu came to Sinai to give the Torah to Israel, it says in the princes, the ministers, the Zkanim of Israel, went up and they saw Hashem Elokei Israel, and it says v'tachas raglov, and underneath Kevyoch LaKadosh Baruch Hu's feet, as it were, Kelivnas Asapir, like a brick of sapphire. There's many secrets. Why a brick of sapphire? There is a very famous drasha about the fact that when Kadosh Baruch Hu showed himself, certain bechin, a certain mashal, so we can relate to what is the thing that he showed them. Because why dafka a brick? What did a brick got to do with anything? Show menorah. A brick, what dafka a brick? Is the brick was a Kadosh Baruch Hu showed them, Imo Anochi Batzara. Kadosh Baruch Hu was mishtatev Betzavnei Yisrael. Israel was in Egypt, and they were working. They were making bricks, and the Egyptians were beating them up, and they were killing them. They were abusing them, and they forced them, to make a certain amount of bricks every single day. Who were these Zakanim that saw Kadosh Baruch Hu, and beneath his legs, as it were, was, as it were, a brick of sapphire? These Zakanim were not the biggest Talmidei Chachamim in Israel. They were not even the biggest Nevi'im. Do you know who they were? They were the Shaitrim. They were the police. Because the Egyptians had foremen, Jewish foremen. And they were in charge of making sure that the Jewish people would bring in the allotted amount of bricks that were supposed to. And when they didn't, the Egyptians beat them up. So instead of giving their brothers to the Egyptians to beat up, the Shach Yisrael, these policemen, these foremen, took it upon themselves, and they were beat up for their brethren. They were mishtatev. I mean, this is okay. I mean, the brethren were making brick, and they were the ones that had the cushy job of policing them. No, it wasn't a cushy job. They took upon themselves whatever punishment the Egyptians meted out when the quota was met. These were the Zakanim that Kadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself to. Learning Torah and everything else will get you B'ezrat Hashem Kedusha and Tahara and everything else. But to be Zoichet to his Galus Alakos, you have to be Moisa Nefesh of Imo Anochi Batzara. Dafka, when you are Moisa Nefesh, to be started with Tsar of Yidden, you're Zeichet to Gilui Shechina. Brick is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed himself to Am Yisrael. Even Shleima Retzoinoi. The Even Shleima signifies, alludes to the Ratzin. In the Alpi Pshat, the Mishlei says that Mizne Mozni Mirma Teves Hashem, Even Shleima Retzoinoi. A false weights. Amen. Is the abomination of Hashem, and Even Shleimo, a weight that is exact, that contains the full exact weight. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. In other words, you have to deal fairly, not cheat on the weights. The Metzudah says Mozne Mirma. What is the false weights that can when the seller wants to cheat, so he shaves off from the he uses a lighter stone when he sells and the smallest heavier stones when he buys. It's all kinds of hanky panky he does. The Even Shleima, in other words, a stone, in other words, a weight that is that holds the exact weight. That's what the HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. That's the Ratzon Hashem. Even Shleima. Even Shleimo is the road to Emunas HaRatzon. What is the thing that causes corrupt merchants to shave off from the weights or to add to the weights? This thing is that derech hateva, that you got to take care of number one. If you're not going to take care of yourself, nobody's going to take care of you. Whatever shtiyot that they have.
That was part of the corruption of by the right? Diluting the wine and
let me tell you something.
the silver.
I want to tell you, there was a story. That a milkman in Yerushalayim, in the I don't know if it's the first or the second decade of the 20th century in Yerushalayim. He went to the drasha. I'm not sure whose drasha it was. It was Mariel Diskin or was I don't know, one of the Gdolim in Yerushalayim. He went to a drasha and he heard this drasha about how you need to medayak, not to cheat, whatever it is. And he was so affected by it that he decided that he's not going to mix water with the milk anymore. That's it. He's making tshuva. Milk is milk, and that's it. So once he stopped doing it, people stopped buying the milk from him because it tastes different. He's probably mixing water into it.
Pure.
Yes. No, we used to, that's the way it feels. So he went to the Rav and he told him what to do. And the Rav says, you see, people got used to lying so much, to sheker so much, then when you offer them the emes, that must be sheker. So I think that it's not only a problem of Bais Rishon. I think there were a few between then and now that are also so along that era, that area. We saw that Evan Tov, that there's the serpent, or whatever you want to call it, behind, swimming around it. Evan Shlemer return, this is the Ratzon. And there's the snake around it, the swimming around it. Tanino, this is the Nochosh, this is the Metzach HaNochosh. Rashi says that the snake in the water is called a Tanin. On the land, it's called a Nochosh, and in the water, it's called a Tanin. Ze Metzach HaNochosh, Shemesavav Misgaber Ala Rotzin, that is totally enwrapping around what the Rotzin is. The Nochas Bar Moira Latwi, and came a swimmer. Bar Maroi, this is Chochma Shebekdusha, Bevchinos Emal HaChochma HaChoisias. So to say to the Chochma, he said, when somebody is a Chocham, he said, Shlomo HaMelech said, Emal HaChochma, say to the Chochma, HaChoisias, you are my sister. He says, in other words, all Divrei Chochma will be so clear to you, the way that it's so obvious to you that you can marry your sister. I'm special. Everything should be clear to you the way it's clear to you that, you cannot marry your sister. So a Baramaroi, somebody who is a progeny of Emor, or Emor LaChochma, is a Chocham D'Kedusha. And Chocham Shebekdusha Ratzol is Gaber, in Laos or Ratzon. The Chocham D'Kedusha wanted to overcome Metzach HaNochosh and elevate the Ratzon, the stone, to elevate it and to tie it up with Shorish HaRatzon, which is the Sfina. Atatanina Kabbalah Boil Sfinto, came the serpent and wanted to swallow the fish. Came the Metzach HaNochosh, the very source of Chochmas HaTeva, Shorish HaTeva, and he wanted to swallow up the boat, and to swallow up the Shorish HaRatzon itself. And Shorish HaRatzon, because Metzach HaNochosh wants to be misgaber now, also on the very root of the Ratzon, and to put kfira, heresy, and doubt there is chas v'sholom. Asa Pushkansa came this Orev Nekeva, as we said. This is female crow. Pascal Reisha, it cut off its head of the snake. Pir Sheba Pchinas Orev, came this Pchina of Orev, of crow. In other words, that natural propensity for stinginess, for cruelty in a person. It's tzedakah. Because Iker Avodas tzedakah, the main avodah of tzedakah, is Pchinas Orev, to break that impetus not to give. When you break it, this is the union of tzedakah. Pchinas Tarvit Tzividik HaKaleko. to turn cruelty into Rahmanis. And through this, you overcome Etzach HaNachos. You cut off its head. Chochmas HaTeva. Because from the very forest itself, you take the wood to make the handle of the axe with which you cut the forest down. So the very essence of evil, you take the evil, you take the stinginess, you take your own innate cruelty, and you break it. By breaking cruelty itself, you're creating Rahmanas. Cruelty in the nature of the person, which is a part of anger, it's a part of tumah, it's a part of Metzach HaNachos, is the very fact, when you break it, that breaks the Metzach HaNachos. Came the Pushkanza, you broke Metzach HaNachos, and it cut off its head. It cut off the head of the Nachos, Pchinas Metzach HaNachos, Shichnio v'arogoi alodei tzedakah. The main meaning that we need to sort of like take from this. There are all kinds of stories that we tell ourselves. Why not to give tzedakah? Why not to be generous? I mean, everybody has in their own, by their nature, a certain amount of generosity that is, that's a teva. Some more, some less. But the Rebbe says that the main value of the tzedakah is dafka when you don't want to give anymore. So let's say a person is a Baal Chol. Okay? Now a person is supposed to give Maisa, right? So there are various shittas. The Sfaradim say that if you owe money, you have to give Maisa. Ashkenazim says no, you have to give Maisa. Nothing to do with that. In the meantime, you can't keep a cheshbon. What are the Maisa that you owe? In the meantime, pay your debts. Akol medium that repayments of debts is number one. What does a person who doesn't want to give Meiser? I can't give Meiser because I owe money. Yeah, okay, so I'm part of a Meiser. The Sfaradim say I'm part of a Meiser. What about tzedakah? How can I give tzedakah? It's like I owe money. It's not my money. This is his Gabrus Metzach HaNachos. That person ends up not giving Meiser and not paying his debts. Somebody goes, borrows 1,000 shekels from somebody, and he says, I'm going to give it for a week. I need it for a week. Okay. And then after the week passes, the person doesn't have the money. It goes to another person. And he says, I need 1,000 shekels for a week. But you can't pay now comes 1,000 shekels. Suddenly you have an income of 1,000 shekels. Who are you going to pay? First person you're not going to pay because he won't believe me anymore. I told him I'll give him in a week and I didn't pay him. So it's the second one. I even still have the chance. I'll pay him back. You'll let me again, whatever it is. So you take 1,000 shekels and you're going to give it to him. If I'm going to give it to him, then I won't have any money left. I'll give him 800. He doesn't know that I have 1,000 shekels, right? I'll give him 800. You'll be happy with 800. And as you go, as I go to that person, it comes down to 500. He doesn't know that I got 1,000 shekels. I'll give him 500 shekels. He'll be very happy. See, I'll tell him not only this, but he'll believe me. He'll believe me. He'll believe me that I want to repay him because I gave him whatever it is I gave him. And he'll also believe me I don't have any more because, I gave you whatever I had, right? By the time you get to the person, it diminishes 250 shekels. And if the person is not home, that's it. You keep the entire 1,000. What happens with this 1,000 shekels? That 1,000 shekels is as good as gone. Because money is like butter on a skillet, on a hot skillet. It does not keep. If you repay the debts, if you don't pay it, you'll have debts and no money. To megaber the bchine of metzach harotzon. Okay, you know something? To cut the Gordian knot of should you pay your debts or should you put away, should you give Meiser, do a combination, cut the Gordian knot. You know something? Take 10% and pay for debts. Okay? Reb Noson's Shver, the father of Noson's brother-in-law, Noson's father-in-law, says, not on Titan. He said about when not on Titan, he says, give you shall give. He says, the minute you get the money, put aside the money for tzedakah. It's not your money anymore. Just put it aside. So when a poor person comes, you have money to give him. Not on Titan. First of all, it's two givings. You give one giving, it's no longer your money. Another giving, when he comes, the poor person comes, then you can give it to him. So it doesn't matter, but start the process. You start the process, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you Siyata D'Shmaya. You have more money to pay your debts. So sometimes you pay your debts, and okay, something, you give 10%, and then maybe you can give 10% plus 5% as Doka, maybe another 5% or 10% to pay your debt. Don't worry, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you everything that you need. Moses Vikenig used to say, if you borrow money, always borrow less than what you need. Because people say, listen, I'm already borrowing money. It's not my money anyhow. I might as well. Says, no, the other way around. I mean, he was running Kerla Breslov. He was running an empire. You had to pay salaries and time, whatever it is, you borrow money, borrow less than what you need. Don't borrow an extra. Extra means that the money is cheap by you because it's somebody else's money. If you'll borrow less than what you need, the money you always be pressed. You don't have enough. You're still telling the Kadosh Baruch Hu. You're still telling Metzach Harotzon. Kadosh Baruch Hu B'ezrat Hashem should help us. Now we have Shabbos Nachamu coming up. Tremendous, tremendous time. That is representing the Makif. Anybody can see the Torah Chafalos, Likutey Moharan. The Rotzen Shabar Tzeilis. After we went through Tisha B'Av, 3 weeks in Tisha B'Av, which is treasure, a treasure. To have the schos of mourn for Yerushalayim. What you see now in the streets, with the persecution of Lemdei Torah, that is Chorban Yerushalayim. People think, this is not Golos. It's Golos. It's Golos in Eretz Yisrael. The only ones who are walking anywhere and going anywhere with total impunity not fearing anything are the Arabs. You cannot go to Shechem. You cannot go to Shechem. The Arabs can come here. No problem. What kind of independence is this? What kind of geula is this? Mourning for Yerushalayim. Mourning for what is going on with the Difa, the persecution of Bnei Torah. To be mitzvah for that, to daven for that, and to say it out loud, not to be embarrassed. Nah, come on, you got to go to the army. Do you know how good I look in khakis? When I go around, if I go to a nightclub with my gun, like, man, you know how cool I look. That's called doing it. That's called that's called us. My son has some kind of an enterprise in right now in Ben Azmon in Chutz La'aretz. And he brought his family there, but they don't let his son leave the country. It was beside his son. He didn't let his son. He has Savikuvitzia or whatever it is. He can't get out of the country because of the age, whatever. They didn't let him go. So my son, almost, he's less, but it's already, whatever they call the first conscription draft, whatever it is, whatever. They didn't let him. So my son was, we're in the car. And so my son said, he had kids. His sons couldn't come, whatever it is. I said, and listen, this is my opinion, right? This is not Das Torah. So whatever I say, take with a grain of salt. I said, Tzara Yilo Yaakov is pikuach nefesh. Not to give in, definitely the price of not going to Ben Azman into Chutz La'aretz b'vadai. That's not a Uleida Mistafina. You have to hear it from an authority that has this. But even if it means not going to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, a Bachar, you cannot go to Uman Rosh Hashanah. It's a pikuach nefesh. Every moisel nefesh. That's my opinion. I mean, my opinion, and 15 shekels will get you coffee to go and cafe aroma. In other words, my opinion doesn't amount too much. But nevertheless, this is what I think. Okay? Take it or leave it. That's Shem Yazov is at Hashem. We'll have a lot. What do you mean? They want to take the Yeshiva Bacham out of yeshivas. It's pikuach nefesh for the entire nation. That's all they want. They always say, just want to kick the Torah out. That's what they want. They don't want soldiers. They have many, leftists, whatever it is, that, don't go to the army and says anyhow. No problem there. It's pikuach nefesh. Yeah, he's staying here. I told him, don't be mitzvah, don't go to the tzar when it's worthwhile. Anyhow, we should all have B'ezrat Hashem a Shabbos Nachamu. Kodesh Baruch B'ezrat Hashem will console all of us for all the Goliaths. B'ezrat Hashem will give us Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'ezrat Hashem sooner nowadays. And we'll all be zoich B'ezrat Hashem to see in the building of Beis Hamikdash B'ezrat Hashem sooner nowadays. Amen.